All right, so the last time we were here was the beginning of April, and we spawned some muskies. Jared, how old are these fish?
These fish are 74 days old.
So 74 days later, this is what we ended up with. Wow. Oh, this is not ideal.
Is that ready?
Yeah, hold on, no, he's, let him go. Oh my gosh. What's up, Yens guys? Welcome back to Fishing PA with Ryan Reed. In this episode, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind. I want to talk about something that is very important for you guys as anglers right here in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, it's been a little over a week and a half or so since I posted on Facebook. I was traveling for work. I really wanted to get this video out as soon as possible. But the topic that we're going to be talking about in this episode is actually the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat voluntary permits. Now, I've seen a lot of negative posts on social media, and I've heard a few comments, as I've been around some of these events in the last couple of weeks surrounding PA Fish and Boat and really surrounding the money that's being contributed to these voluntary permits. There seems to be a lot of mistrust when it comes to PA Fish and Boat, and a lot of guys have kind of expressed their frustrations where they don't necessarily know where that money is going. So what I thought I would do is just a quick episode on it. I just want to talk about why PA Fish and Boat is doing the voluntary permits like this one right here. Talk about information that I have found through research and really just try to give you guys at least a foundational understanding of why this permit is in place. And then I'll just give you my viewpoint on it as an angler right here in the state of Pennsylvania. First and foremost, I just want to point this out. I am not talking politics in this video. I do not do politics. I am completely neutral. However, this is a topic that is fishing related, and it's a topic that really impacts us as anglers. So that's why I wanted to bring this up. I just wanted to make sure I state that I'm not getting into political viewpoints in this video. All right, guys. So a lot of you that have reservations regarding PA Fish and Boat, we are not talking about the one-off scenarios that you run into with wardens out in the field. A lot of people have reached out to me after they saw my post and said, well, I had a bad experience, so on and so forth. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about PA Fish and Boat. We're talking about the stalking effort. We're talking about the fish habitat improvement plans. And we are talking about this voluntary permit in particular. I'm not getting into these one-off scenarios that we have with wardens out there. I personally have never had a bad experience with PA Fish and Boat. I personally have been stopped multiple times and asked to see my license. For the most part, I have not had any issues. So if you guys have experienced that, let's keep that away from this video. That's a completely separate topic than what we're talking about here with the permits. All right, guys, first and foremost, let me give you some background on the permits. All right, so these new voluntary permits were introduced in 2019. These permits are optional. And what they do is they provide you as an angler with an opportunity to provide financial support to specific programs and projects that PA Fish and Boat do throughout the year. Now, revenue from the sales of each permit is placed in a restricted account and will be used to support new efforts to expand existing endeavors. So basically, for the cost of about $11.90, so we're talking under $12 here, you guys can go out and get a voluntary habitat and waterways conservation permit. You can go out and get a voluntary muskie permit. You can get a voluntary bass permit, or you can get a voluntary wild trout and enhanced waters permit. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of each of these permits, but basically, you guys can go out there, you can take a look at those permits, and you can identify if there is a specific program that you really want to be a part of and really want to contribute to. Now, for example, I've been fishing for muskies a lot more over the last couple of years. I was able to see the stalking effort. I was able to work with Jared up at the Hatcheries and really get an understanding of what goes into that program. So knowing that the muskie doesn't readily reproduce in the state of Pennsylvania because of our fertile waters, I know how important that stalking program is. So I went out and I invested in my muskie permit. Now you have multiple options there. You guys can take a look at that. Bottom line, guys, this program with the voluntary permits gives you as an angler a voice here in the state of Pennsylvania. We can now, as an angler, take a look at these programs. We can see where Fish and Boat needs help. And now we have a voice. We can dedicate our own money to a program that we want to see benefit from. So if I want to see more muskies stocked in the state of Pennsylvania, or if I want to see the fish habitat improvement plan get better in a specific lake, I now have a voice. I can donate my $11.90 to Fish and Boat and say, I want to contribute to conservation or bass or muskie or wild trout or whatever it is that I want to contribute to see that program benefit. So again, considering this program a voice to provide those funds to Fish and Boat, we start getting all of these questions. We start asking all of these questions like, why don't they have enough money to do this now? Or why is the program hindered? Or are those funds really being contributed to those areas? There's a lot of different things that people are asking. All I really want to do with this video is I just want to give you guys what I believe that I think I know about PA Fish and Boat. Hopefully this will give you guys enough information to start, but ultimately the decision is up to you whether or not you want to invest in this permit. I believe this to be a very valuable tool for PA Fish and Boat. And again, the word voluntary, it's still voluntary. It's not mandatory. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But, this video, I really want this video to prompt you guys to go out there and do your own research about this permit and really understand why the program's in place, and then base your decision as an angler, whether you're going to invest in this permit or not, off of research and an actual opinion. All right, guys, so here's what I think I know about PA Fish and Boat based off the research that I have done. So my first point really is, why is PA Fish and Boat here? Well, I believe that PA Fish and Boat protects us as anglers, and they protect and manage the native fish species and also the fisheries, including lakes, rivers, and streams right here in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, think about some of the things that PA Fish and Boat would have to deal with that are unaccounted for, maybe budget-wise, throughout the year. Think about the scenario of a fatal fish disease. Say that we have a body of water here in the state of PA that encounters some type of fatal fish disease, and then think about the money and think about the resources that go in to resolving a situation like that. That's just one example of something that PA Fish and Boat would have to deal with and manage that they may not have budgeted for, or maybe they've gone over budget in that particular area trying to manage these body of waters across the entire state. All right, point number 2, the stalking effort here in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, we know that PA waters require stalking of a lot of the native species to supplement numbers of fish, to increase angling opportunities, and to really help establish healthy fish populations across the state. Without that stalking effort, fish that cannot naturally reproduce easily in our fertile water would struggle. Guys, think about this. Without the stalking effort, think about your family traditions. I have one on the first day of trout where me, my brother, my dad, Deanna, we go out and we fish stalked trout on the first day of trout. Think about the family traditions that wouldn't exist if those fish weren't available. I've seen at least one comment about some of the hatcheries closing and, they're just not stocking as many fish. Well, part of that has to do with the budget that's been cut. And again, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but think about family traditions. Think about you as a musky fisherman. Think about the passion and the fire that burns in us to try to chase these fish. think about the stalking effort and how that fish relies on the stalking across the state to continue to thrive. Without fish being stalked, the numbers dwindle. And guess what? That affects us as muskie fishermen. That affects the fish population, and it really hinders that passion that we have to chase muskies. All right, point number 3, the other thing that I really, really wanted to point out here was PA Fish and Boat has an extensive fish habitat improvement plan. Now, some of the lake breakdowns that I do, guys, you guys know I pull directly from Fish and Boat in their fish habitat improvement plan structure maps. When you look at structure and you look at some of these things that they are doing to improve habitat in some of these lakes and some of these reservoirs, it costs a ton of money and really such a large effort that goes into that type of a program. And you guys know it as well as I do. I mean, this is a requirement for some of our lakes, some of our river systems. Like if you look at some of the reservoirs, the fish need more structure to flourish. They need somewhere to go, to hide and to live, and they relate to that structure. So that's a really important aspect to what PA Fish and Boat does that a lot of people aren't really thinking about, that costs a tremendous amount of money, and really it's a tremendous amount of effort. All right, guys, point number 4. This one's absolutely critical. This one's really important because I want to talk about the hatcheries. This is a really great way for you as a normal person and a normal angler here in the state of Pennsylvania to go up and get involved so that you understand what goes into the process that PA Fish and Boat goes through. And that process being the spawning, the raising or rearing of these fish, and then ultimately the stocking of these fish into PA waters. Now, when I visited the process in Linesville, I got to see largemouth bass. I got to see catfish. I got to see trout. And you guys know that I got that epic footage with Jared in the muskie stocking program. I mean, that was my way to go up to the hatchery and really see those processes firsthand and really understand what goes into raising these fish and ultimately stocking them for you as an angler to go out there and catch and eat. We talk about walleye. At one point I was walking through the hatchery and Jared said, there's 2 or 3 million walleye in that tank. 2 or 3 million walleye. Guys, 2 or 3 million walleye in that tank. And that's only like one portion of the stocking that goes into the state of Pennsylvania. You guys have to understand too that when you're stocking 2 million fish, you're not guaranteed to get 2 million fish out of that. There's a certain percentage that are going to live and there's a certain percentage that are going to die. So you've really got to understand this stuff. And the best way to do that is to go up there, see the hatcheries for yourself, understand the process, understand the tools that they need in order to do this, and really gain an understanding for yourself so that you can better judge whether or not this permit is going to help those stocking efforts. And, guys, I can sit here until I'm blue in the face and I can talk to you about the voluntary muskie permit and how much it means to the program. But until you go and actually see it, you may or may not understand. If you guys watch that video I did, both on the spawning and then the stocking with Jared, you really understand, they need certain tools to do this. And this permit is directly affecting them to be able to continue to raise and stock muskies here in the state of Pennsylvania. So I guess to wrap this bullet point up, just take the time. If you guys are really serious about trying to understand this, you want to be a part of something awesome that can contribute to a very healthy fishery for whatever program you want to do or be involved in, get with the hatcheries, man. Give Jared a call or just go up there and visit the visitor center and see if you can see the facility for yourself and ask questions and understand it. The best way for you to understand how much this actual permit will help Fish and Boat is to go up there, ask questions, and understand the process and understand the tools that they need, and understand how much dang money it costs for them to raise these fish, for us to go out there and catch, and ultimately, take pictures of, release, or put on the dinner table. So go out there and get educated, spend some time, look at the hatcheries. It's critically important to understanding why this permit program is occurring. All right, guys, my fifth bullet point. This is going to be a long one. You guys need to hang in there with me. I promise it's going to be worth it. Personally, through research, again, this is personally, I spent a ton of time digging around trying to find information as to why PA Fish and Boat is doing this, as to what, what happened to the money. Was there budget cuts? Was there something that happened? Why are they doing this? Why are they trying to do this? And I can tell you that what I found pleasantly surprising was that PA Fish and Boat is like completely transparent. All right, guys, so what do I mean by that? Well, I really just want to share with you a snip, okay? And this is like really, really important. So this is directly from Fish and Boat, and I just want to point out here that the Voluntary Habitat and Waterway Conservation Permit brought in almost $21,000 last year in 2019. The Voluntary Muskie Permit actually brought in $16,000. The Voluntary Bass Permit looks like it pulled in close to $35,000. And then you have the Wild Trout and Enhanced Waters Permit that pulled in something like $56,000. So the point to me bringing this up is you guys can go out to the website and you can see exactly what they spent the money on and why. When you look at the muskie stalking permit, one of the challenges that Jared had at the facility up in Linesville was being able to manage the water temperature. Think about how they get fresh water from those ponds, from Pymatuning, throughout the whole entire facility. Like there's a pump system that they've got to manage. And if they're pumping straight from Pymatuning to get that water throughout the facility, like there's no real way to manage the temperature. It is what it is. So you guys know that muskies need like specific water temps in order to spawn. You guys know that they require specific water temps to, revamp or revitalize after they've been handled. There's a lot of stuff, man, that is involved in that water temperature. And the way that Jared can produce more fish and healthy fish to spawn, rear, and stock is by managing that water temperature better. That's what they needed for this year in 2019, 2020. They needed to be able to heat that water up and be able to manage that. And guess what? This voluntary permit, my $11.90 contributed to Jared getting a tool that he desperately needs in order to spawn, rear, and stock more muskies. That might have been the best $12 I spent on the fishing industry in all of 2019. Guys, the other thing that I found through research, aside from the transparency right here, is that there's actually a ton of reports that were sent to legislature that are actually like pretty detailed, and they discuss like all of the budget cuts that they had to endure. And one of the interesting things is I found that PA Fish and Boat has had their budget cut every single year for the last 12 years. Those budget cuts really affected some of the hatcheries closing. So for a lot of you guys that are out there complaining about the numbers of fish being stocked, one of the problems are that the budget is continuously being cut throughout the last 10 to 12 years. So I ask you guys this, have you looked for any of that information that's available on some of these reports? Have you actually looked to see why the budgets were cut? Have you actually looked to see, why or what the result of those budget cuts are, like hatcheries closing and how many fish can't actually be stocked now because of those hatcheries closing? It's a question. I'm not criticizing. I'm just asking, if those of you that don't have trust or are complaining about numbers being stocked, do you really have an understanding why? And that's kind of what I'm getting at. I want you guys to go out there and do your own research to understand this, because this permit for trout, if you go and get that trout permit or you go and get the bass permit, you're contributing to saying, I want more of these stocked. Fix the problem with the budget, right here through this voluntary permit. Now, if you guys are friends with me on Facebook or Instagram, or if you go back to my community post on YouTube, you can actually see the link that I'm talking about. There's a link that goes out to that report that I found, at least one of the reports that I found, directly to legislature that explains all of that. But the one thing I'm getting at, guys, is that I can't personally, as a fisherman, expect PA Fish and Boat to continue to stock tremendous numbers of fish whenever their budget's being cut annually for the last 12 years. It just doesn't make sense. think about your own budget. Think about start your fishing budget with $100 a year. Every time you knock another $5 or $10 off for the next 12 years, how much money are you actually going to have left in your fishing budget? It just doesn't make sense. And these are things that we need to think through as anglers and understand why, instead of just saying, I don't trust them, the money's not going to where it should be. The other thing is inflation. Like, think about how much more expensive this stuff is over the last 40 years. I mean, it's way different. Like, our lakes aren't even the same as they were, 30, 40 years ago. And in some cases, our lakes are actually better than they were 30 or 40 years ago because of PA Fish and Boat. But it's really, understanding like inflation, understanding the budget cuts, understanding all of this stuff that goes into what they actually do for us from a stocking and fish habitat improvement plan. And, it all comes back to like trying to find a way to supplement funds so that they can keep going for us as anglers. All right, guys. So again, all of this stuff said, I know I'm kind of rambling, but all of this stuff said, my opinion based off of the research that I've done has allowed me to come to the conclusion that PA Fish and Boat needs help. They need financial help because of all the stuff that we talked about. The unforeseen occurrences with issues with the fisheries, the fish habitat improvement plan, the stocking efforts, raising more and more fish or trying to provide you guys with better angling opportunities for walleye, for catfish, for bass, inflation and budget cuts over the last 40 years. Like, these are all things that they've had to endure. And these are all things that are contributing as to why they need to do permits like this and why they need help. But the other thing that I'm concluding on is that this is your opportunity as an angler here in the state of Pennsylvania. This is your voice. You now have a voice with PA Fish and Boat that says, hey, my $12, if I want to do a single year, you can do multiple years and provide more money. But my $12, I want this to go to this specific program. This is your way to make a change. This is your way to be a part of change for what PA Fish and Boat's doing here in the state of Pennsylvania. So guys, again, my opinion, contributing funds to these voluntary permits will help PA Fish and Boat better our fisheries here in the state of Pennsylvania. These funds are to help supplement funds that are just no longer available for all the reasons what we talked about. So again, just really quick, like for those of you that are still feeling really negative about PA Fish and Boat or just negative about where the money's going or have any thoughts that are negative, I just want to ask you guys, if you really understand how the fisheries are managed, like, do you guys really understand how important the stocking effort is here in the state of Pennsylvania? Has anybody really ever looked at how much effort and how much money goes into a fish habitat improvement plan? Have you guys ever really looked at some of these public documents that are out there concerning the budget cuts and the things that PA Fish and Boat send to legislature to say they need help with in order to keep up the stocking efforts and or, all of this other stuff that goes into it? If you guys have looked at all that stuff and you still feel negative, that's completely fine. You're entitled to your opinion. If the answer is no, when you're asking yourself about these questions, like if you're not really informed, do you think it would be worth doing a little bit more research just so you can understand the process before you just talk negatively about them? I mean, you guys know I support Fish and Boat. I support the regulations that they put in place. They protect me as an angler, and they protect our native fish species as well as our waterways here in the state of Pennsylvania. You guys know I'm always going to support the hatchery, and I'm always going to try to draw attention to the staff that are involved in the hatcheries. They do amazing things for us as fishermen. And lastly, I'm going to continue to support this voluntary permit because it's your voice as an angler to really help make a difference in a program that you're interested in. Now, I'm not telling everybody to run out there and buy muskie permits. What I'm doing is I'm asking you to evaluate and to research. And if you guys think it's worth it, by all means, invest the money. If you like bass, invest in bass. If you like trout, invest in trout. If you want to invest in conservation, invest in conservation. If you're a guy like me who's been chasing muskies around, invest in muskies. To each his own. But this permit again, it's your voice as a Pennsylvania angler, and really your money is going to contribute to the overall betterment of our fisheries here in the state of PA. All right, guys, the other thing I have to address and I have to mention, I've heard a lot of comments about people being worried about, oh, what happens if this voluntary permit goes to mandatory? Everybody's worried about being forced to pay this money. Well, they're not mandatory today, so we really shouldn't worry about it. But if they do go mandatory next year, my question is, who really cares? If you guys love the sport of fishing as much as I do, you're going to pay the money and you're going to support the fish. Think about it this way. For as much as we fish in a year, break that cost of the license plus the permit down per trip, and it actually makes the cost pretty minimal. But really, guys, before you make your decision to buy the permit or to not buy the permit, really all I'm asking you is to ask questions. Do research. Form your own opinion. Don't just be a negative Nelly because it's easy to be sour about something. You know, don't throw out comments that are just hurtful or unfounded for people that really work extremely hard to support our fisheries and better our fisheries for you guys as an angler. You know, one of the things you guys can do is if you have an issue, reach out to PA Fish and Boat and get it addressed. If you guys will ask the question, there's a very decent possibility that you could get an answer to your question. Maybe it'll even yield a positive result for you. Now, a lot of guys have told me PA Fish and Boat has been hard to deal with the last 20 years, this and that. It's just ingrained in us that they don't get anything done. You know, the one thing is like things change over time. You know, since Jared Sayers got involved in PA Fish and Boat, like a lot of fishermen and a lot of respected people are communicating a lot better, and we're actually getting results. We're actually seeing questions answered. Things change over time, and I think this is the best opportunity that we have as an angler to work with PA Fish and Boat when you've got people like Jared that are there working for them and they're really transparent to us as anglers. So before you guys get all frustrated with me and say, well, I've never gotten results from them, you know, things are a little different now. It might be worth just start asking questions and see if they actually do yield positive results. I got to be honest with all of you. You know, I feel like if you guys take your time to educate yourself on this permit, you know, why it's available, educate yourself on PA Fish and Boat, I think you might realize that this program is actually very beneficial. I think the other thing you're going to realize is how much PA Fish and Boat does to manage our fisheries here in the state of Pennsylvania, how much positivity that they bring to the table every single year for our fisheries. I guess the only real difference I see now, guys, is we as anglers have the opportunity to give back to PA Fish and Boat and help them as much as they've helped us as fishermen. All right, Yins, guys. Feels good to kind of get that off my chest. I've been thinking about it for a while. I really just wanted to do my best to get some information out to you guys so that you do your own research. You know, again, I'm going to tell you if you're a muskie fisherman, you know, some of you know this because I've really pushed the permit on you. If you're a muskie fisherman, I just truly believe that this permit is helping the muskie here in the state of Pennsylvania. I just firmly believe that this program is going to a good cause, and I firmly believe that the money is making it there. And, you know, this, again, is just something that I wanted to get off my chest, give you guys my opinion on it for whatever it's worth, and really spark the conversation. I'm curious to see what kind of feedback I get from this, whether it's negative or positive. I'm never going to shy away from contact when I believe in something, and I would expect that all of you would not shy away from contact for something that you believe in as well. So it's interesting. I think it's cool to talk about this stuff. I think it's important to understand all of this stuff, and it's important to understand what PA Fish and Boat does or what they don't do here in the state of Pennsylvania and the reasons for that. So anyway, I hope you guys like this video. It's a longer than I anticipated it to be. If you do, hit that like button for me. If you guys like this content overall, please subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. Anyway, we're going to keep building some content. I'm going to be really busy. I've got some really exciting stuff coming up with Muskie Max that I'm pumped about. And I'm going to share that in the next video. All right, guys. Tight lines. We will see yins next time.